Welcome to the LGBTQ New Americans Oral History Project. My name is Wilfredo Hernandez, Arts and Culture Group Leader here at the Brooklyn Community Pride Center.
And I'm Jackie Yodashkin, Public Affairs Director for Immigration Equality. And it is June 3rd, 2017, and a Saturday.
Yes, it is. And we are here with
David Habruzania, aka David Paul K. And I am at the Brooklyn Pride Community Center. Did I say it right?
You got it. Brooklyn Community Pride Center.
Brooklyn Community Pride Center.
Well, thanks for joining us, David.
And thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, can you tell us where you grew up?
Middle of nowhere. I originally come from the country of Georgia. I was born in the Soviet Union while it was still the Soviet Republic of Georgia. So that's what my birth certificate says. And I grew up in the second big city, city of 250, in a very semi-conservative, semi-Soviet, semi-religious, environment. But I'm here today, and I'm glad that I'm here and not there.
What was it like growing up there?
Yeah, it took a while to realize all those experience that I was going through as a child were completely against my identity and my inner me and who I really was and what I really wanted until later in my years. So it's like you're growing up contradicting everything that you believe in, because especially in the Soviet reality, as many of my friends who come from there or are from different countries of the former Soviet Union, we grew up under, iron fist is a very loud word, but our daily lives literally were reflecting that. Of course, there was no freedom of speech or expression, even though, on paper, everyone was free and happy. So that's what I was told. In the family, in the community, school, I was told not to do things and what to do and what not to do. No one would ever ask you what you wanted to do, how you wanted, and even if you expressed yourself in a manner that was different from everyone else, you always started experiencing problems, and those problems grew and grew as I grew older. Especially when I got to the point when I had to sort of realize that I was different from a lot of people, and there was no one like me around me, and this was happening while the Soviet Union was collapsing. There was a civil war going on. There were a lot of social issues. So just to find one word to describe everything, it was a mess.
So, did you have anything that you enjoyed doing while you were growing up to
counteract
the mess?
A lot. I was always this little queer kid, because that's the definition of queer. I was the one in the spotlight. I played the piano, wrote poems. I was in the journals. I was involved in everything. So it's like a typical, if we compare it to like a typical American kid, like if you're in the drama school and if you're in arts or everything. So that was enjoyable as a kid. But as a child, I did not see the reality and the colors and patterns and shades that I saw later after I started analyzing what was happening around me. So it was a good experience in terms of growing up as a child who was always wanted and appreciated and admired. But then again, the reality hit. I got into my puberty. I got into my teenage years where I realized that there were certain things that were very important for me that I could not talk to anyone. And my sexuality was the key factor in that case. I lived in a denial. Actually, there's a story that I don't think I've told this to many, because it's a shame is the main reason why homophobia sort of starts and originates, especially in that community. You cannot talk. If you even suspect that you have a queer kid growing up, even as a mother, that your kid is different. You are trying to hide it, sugarcoat it. You're trying to package it differently and deliver it and say, close your eyes to the reality. And the victim at the end is the kid, because the kid is forced to go to the direction that the kid is forced to go to. So I was in that position looking at it from that perspective. And worst importantly, even though, and this is really weird to think about right now, even though everyone was homophobic, and every time I like Elton John, George Michael, Boy George, these were the names that I could hear and I could connect to growing up. And those were the ones that I associated my thoughts towards, but they were always portrayed in a very negative manner and form. So if someone, if there was a song by George Michael, on TV, someone would call him a, F word. But for me, it was very, very painful to realize that the only thing that could normalize what I was feeling was portrayed as the worst thing in the world. So, I was fortunately I became on that positive note, I won a U.S. State Department scholarship to go to America as an exchange student at the age of 16, and graduate to my final senior year of high school, and that was the biggest highlight of my life. I would not tell everyone that I just want to get the hell out of here and go somewhere else, but I was getting out of there, and I was experiencing something that was not where I was. So they took me from the middle of nowhere and put me in the middle of nowhere in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. And even though I was closeted there, and I had not, I lived with a very amazing family. It was a very red state, as you know, and extremely conservative by American standards. But again, that's where I learned what the United States is really about. And that was the place where I fell in love with the country that became my second home. And then now it's like my first and the only home. So am I going too far in the, yeah. So Oklahoma, a typical foreign exchange student with an accent, and my accent was a lot heavier than it is now. I actually sounded like someone from that part of the world. I don't even know what I sound like right now. But I faced a completely different social structure. Values were absolutely different from what I was taught. I realized that I could speak my thoughts. The only thing that was required from me was do no harm. That was the whole formula of existence. Of course, there was a good and bad. There was, I saw racism firsthand because it's Oklahoma, and there's some generations we need to work anywhere. Like the racism is homophobia. We had an openly, I wouldn't say openly gay kid, but they talked. But I did not see aggression, violence, hate. That was something that was completely different. So that was the first time when I realized, you know what, I don't have to deny myself. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's not the train coming towards you. That was great. I still keep in touch with my family. They are my family. We are always, I haven't been there in a few years, so I have to go visit them. But we always do, Thanksgiving and call each other, and we have a very, very tight relationship. So, but I thank them for introducing the America that I know and that I love. I believe if I had come to a big city, even not the city, but like Chicago or LA, I would not be able to understand that side of the coin that is a big part of my life now. So there was that, and and there was the end of my sort of childhood years, and then I went back to Georgia after I graduated from Caney High School.
And what did you do when you got back to Georgia?
Started smoking cigarettes. No, I was 17. I got back to the community that believes that your parents should feed you and take care of you even if you are 60. As long as they're alive, they have to, it's like that Italian, Greek, sick mentality that I totally disagree with. And so there was no chance of independence in any aspect of this world. And of course, this different kid who was sent to a different country came back with different values, even though he came from Oklahoma. And so I was a complete mess internally. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of balls to juggle, but the way I was expressing myself this was when I started sort of trying to shape things together and understanding how can I lied every day. That was the worst. It was the most painful part of my life, that I had to contradict I had to lie to myself in order to survive. And that was the first realization. So I moved from the second big city to the capital, which is Tbilisi, and I was accepted at the Tbilisi State University, majoring in computer science because I was good with computers, one of the skills. But I hated it because there was corruption everywhere. You could not study. You just had to bribe the deans and the teachers. So that's how everyone got away. You had to just hang out and do nothing and start. And I wanted to get a job. That was because that's what I learned here, that you are a kid. If you can talk, if you can walk, go make your money, be independent. And this was like, this is me. These are my values. It was weird there, it was weird for them to understand. But I got a job first I was teaching, I used to teach Georgian and Russian to my newly made friends in the expatriate community of Georgia, mostly British teachers who, or some people from like nonprofits or the government workers. So I made some friends, and we're still in touch. Some of them are still around me, which is great. So after that, I got a job at a construction company with Morrison Construction, which is like a British, Irish, Scottish. So I, a 17-year-old or 18-year-old kid, sounding like someone from Oklahoma, am working, building a Marriott 5-star marquee hotel right in the middle of the city. As a translator, I'm translating from English to Russian or Georgian and vice versa, with my Oklahoma accent to Scots and Irish and all those crazy. So it was another phase of a mess in my life, I learned a lot there because it gave me a chance to avoid the community that I was in. It gave me a chance to stick around the people who shared my values. And by my values, I'm talking about the values of the West. And that gave me a chance to grow professionally and boycott the reality of, I do not want to have a diploma, I want to have an education. I do not want to have a name in the title, I want to have experience. Because that's the reality, that's the life that I learned in the States. So after working there for 2 years, I got promoted, even though I was a kid, and I was really grateful, I was doing really well. Then I was offered a job to start as a language assistant on the U.S. State and Justice Department run project back in Georgia, training local law enforcement and sort of recalibrating them to the Western standards. So. And it was mostly the forensic. They were building a forensic lab, and that was one of the highlights of my life because I was in the heart of the American justice system. I was learning a lot. I was surrounded by my boss, who is one of my best friends. They're a retired Army colonel. Now he lives back in Georgia. He has a Georgian wife, and he's in love with them. And I'm like, they're crazy. And I was like, no, I love Georgians. I'm like, no, so we're like on that. We've kind of traded places, but he's a great guy. Retired Army colonel. He was a police chief here, I think, in Virginia, and he just wrote a book. I designed his cover. Great guy. But he taught me a lot. Another step of me I would call it American values, liberty and justice for all. I think Michael was and is the guy who sort of, growing up, my father died when I was a kid, so my mother raised me. He was like a father figure to me. And I was glad and I was thankful that I had a father figure who shared the values. He was the one I came out to, like the first person I came out to. And he took it like a really good dad would. I remember he gave me a hug, and I still get goosebumps when I recreate that moment in my head. And he's a big goofball though. The guy doesn't even have one unbroken bone, 500 parachute jumps. We're talking about the hardcore, he was a Green Beret. Great guy. Working with him for 2 years more than 2 years, from 2002 to almost 2006. It was great. I got to work with the U.S. law enforcement professionals in different fields, forensic examiners. I'm a qualified, trained, certified fingerprint examiner, certified by the U.S. Justice Department, which was, that was when I sort of kind of dropped out from my school, the Georgia Technical University, and applied for my second major at Tbilisi State University, majoring in law, because I wanted to sort of go down that path. And it was. I used to come here a lot on business trips. I've been and seen the morgue of LA and the coroner's office on one of our tours. I've worked with FBI agents, local Secret Service agents in different. They were training Georgians, so they were bringing something really awesome and cool and important. And also, they were giving me a lesson and an example that this is what we think the good is, this is what we think the bad is. This is how we think that we can fix bad and turn it into good. And here's an option. We're not forcing you to do it our way, but we're telling you, we've done this worked. So if you do it this way, we're on the same page. I was right in the middle of this. And this was the rhetoric that I was hearing from my American colleagues. And this is what I was trying to teach them. But their rhetoric was, you know what? These stupid Americans are coming here. They're teaching us what to do. We know how to do it. And that was always it was like an arrow in my heart. And I was always in a conflict with them. And the big part of that project got shut down because of that. I come with the right intention. The reason, of course, as an American, my agenda is I want you to be on the same page, because if I have a criminal committing a crime in Tbilisi, Georgia, and if he's wanted here for whatever, terrorism or whatnot, I can have him identified and arrested within the minutes or hours. So be the part of our system. They didn't want it. And I saw it firsthand. And there was another disappointment of the people who raised me going behind and not forward. But moving back to myself during that period of time, that's when I made my first friends in the queer community, of course, underground community. The computers, the internet was taking off. We had chat rooms, we had back channels, and of course, you're a young man. You need to meet someone, talk to someone, if it's mental, physical, it doesn't matter, you have to. And that's when I sort of came out to myself, to one of my first queer friends, he came out to me first, and then, I established a little network. Unfortunately, that later led me to getting in trouble, and just, had to get out of there because of that, because more people know the danger, the larger the risk of being targeted by some jerk who just, or a group of jerks, or who want to, you know how it works. And so, yeah, that was that in my 20s. Do you have any questions? I don't know, I'm talking too much.
We want you to talk.
Okay.
It's kind
As
of the
much,
point.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So you came to the U.S. on a bunch of business trips.
Yeah.
When did you decide you wanted to stay in the U.S.?
Actually, unfortunately, it was not that I decided to stay in the U.S. In 2008, so that's the time. So to follow the timeline, while I was working with the Justice Department, I also was offered to do. I was a cartoonist. I was doing I was good with Photoshop and like painting, and this is what I do now. Like I do art full time almost, but I was playing with Photoshop and I was being artsy on the side as always, and that led me to becoming a pretty famous person in the media field because they didn't like the government. I was a pain in the ass for the government because I was creating dozens of caricatures every week. So one day I walked out and one of the main magazines had one of my cartoons on the front page saying, "Who is Guricha?" was my nickname before. So then I was interviewed by the TV station while I'm still working with the Justice Department. I have my day job. And, I showed up, I revealed myself, I was interviewed on the morning show, and then they offered me, I was like, "We liked you on camera, do you wanna host a show?" I'm like, "I have a day job." So they said, "We will give you the morning slot, you can do the morning show," and then, and I did that. And once I did that, I became a celebrity. I don't like to use that word, but, I sort of became a face, recognizable face. That led to the need to be more cautious about your identity. And I was dating someone at that point, my first love. That didn't end well. But in order for us to be together in terms of like have coffee, we should take our best friend with us so she could sit there and it would not be suspicious. So things like that were like, there were rules, non-written rules that we had to follow. And so in my mid-20s, like late 20s, I was mid-20s, I would say 26. My Justice Department project was over. That job was over. I was doing TV full time. I started a web studio with a bunch of my little computer gigs. That now that web studio is very successful back there. And so I was pretty involved. I had a pretty full life. It was nice, but it got to the point when one day, after, just to make it short and understandable, is that after about a month and a half of blackmail and a couple of really, really bad accidents, I had to decide either I'm staying and probably dying or just getting out of there and just going somewhere. So I made a decision. I hadn't told anyone because in my head at that point, the way I saw it was that if I told it if I sort of shared what was going on with my either mother or friend, I was endangering them as well. So, now to me it sounds a little maybe exaggerated, but that was the reality then. So, just to give you an example, my plane took off at 4 a.m. in the morning or 3 something, and next day I had to be on air, and no one, even my mother, didn't know that I was leaving. So I just had to, and I went to Philadelphia where no one would think of, I could have gone to Oklahoma. There were a bunch of options in my head, but I wouldn't say it an agenda, but the goal or the purpose was just to get out of there. And then whatever happens. And later I was diagnosed with PTSD, which I didn't know what it was but thankfully there were some really great professionals here, and there was a program that I was a part of for a short amount of time that, helped me sort of realize and kind of relieve that part of my life that I hope no one else experiences. And I gave myself I don't want to make it sound like, I made an oath, but I made it an agenda of my life moving forward, is that if I can say something, or if my word or my action can somehow help someone else from not going through something what I went through, or what a lot of people in my community were going through or are going through, I mean, I'll be vocal. I mean, I'm not gonna fight. I don't like this word of like we're fighting for our rights. I'm gonna stand and I'm gonna talk and I'm gonna be vocal. But I mean, it can be nonviolent. So there was that, and started from a blank page in Philadelphia where I pretty much knew nobody. Unfortunately, the Soviet community there is as bad as back there. So I had to sort of, and that brought me to New York less than a year later, where I found my real true home.
So what was the most surprising thing? I mean, you'd spent a fair bit of time in the States, but what was the most surprising thing when you came here and you knew that you were staying?
Well, we all know that the New York is a completely different animal. The city is home, and the city is the representation of the best and the worst of what America is about. And by the worst, I mean in a very good way. We're all individuals. We love, we hate, and if we deny the fact that we hate, we're liars. So New York is real. And that's why, like, the first time I sort of walked around the streets and looked at these people and got in the subway and, this is when I realized this is the heartbeat that intertwines with my pulse. And I'm like, this is real. Like, this is real. I can be who I am, living in the same, 2 square feet with others on the train, but coexisting without interfering, he may hate me for who I am, but he's not going to touch me. If he touches me, then he will be taken care of by not me, but by the system. New York is the system that represents what America was founded on and what makes America strong. And I can go for hours and hours to describe how important it is because from outside you see the Statue of Liberty and yellow cabs, and I have not been to the Statue of Liberty or up in the Empire State Building. It's there, of course. That's not the city. That's not America. New York, because every time you see a tourist walking down the street and you know that they're from Arizona or Oklahoma, I can identify them. I love them equally. I share my time, my existence with them equally. And again, even though I always say this, that I live with 8 million crazy roommates and I'm loving it. That's the greatness of this city. And not to be too New Yorkie. I like to go out and get out of the city and go, down to Oklahoma or Florida, and other parts of and I'm going to be doing that a lot more next year, because New York is made of that. What comes from across the oceans and what comes from the land, that's where it comes all together. So immigration, that's why, is a very, very important key topic right now, because America is understanding. America is a boiling pot or melting pot. Has always been and is always, but now the fire is more intense. So things are starting to boil harder. And that's why we're stuck right in the middle of this mess of people not being in, because I have a family in Oklahoma. They have their own views about Islam. I have friends who are Muslims who are gay in the city, who have sisters who cover themselves at any level what they want. I'm sometimes feel like I'm an ambassador explaining to my family in Oklahoma, and they're just an example of why the information that they get about that part of the world is not right. And it's the wrong propaganda, because I know really well what a dirty, disgusting propaganda is all about, because I grew up in the Soviet Union. The Soviets are the strongest and the greatest when it comes to brainwashing people, and they're still doing. When we talk about Putin and Russia, we're not talking about Russia or Russian people. We're talking about the Soviets that are really good with propaganda and really strong with propaganda. So I don't know why I got there. How did how did I go from Oklahoma to? But that's, that is my life. Literally, that's New York. I mean, you're just, yeah. Okay. No,
Where in New York are you living now?
Uptown, up in Inwood, up in the semi-Dominican, semi-Irish, semi-queer neighborhood.
How do you like it?
Oh, I love it. It's I've been there for like 7 years, but I don't stay there that much. I'm always out, and but now we have bread and yoga down the block, and we have a coffee shop called Chalk NYC that's run by a queer couple in their 40s, 50s. They're sweet and adorable. We have 2 dog parks where, and I have 2 lesbian couples and now 3 gay couples living in my building, which was unimaginable about 6 years ago when I moved up there. It's great. I mean, I have a lot of space, so that's why I'm there, because I painted my home is my living room. I converted it into my art studio, so I use that as for my business purposes as well as my home. So that's why I decided to stay up there, because the real estate in New York is going up, as you know. So yeah, it's great. Inwood is great. Come visit.
So,
when you landed first in Philadelphia, how did you learn about immigration equality?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I can talk days and hours about immigration equality. At first I had no plan per se to like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. But then a few weeks later, after sort of clearing air and just facing the reality, I mean, I've got to do something. There are next steps. What's next? So one of the options, one of my friends suggested that if that's the situation, perhaps you should apply for asylum. And so I did research my, training with the justice system. I mean, you're good with forms, perhaps, or the system. So this is what you file. This is what. So follow the system and just figure out that if that's the right. So I did that, but apparently our American legal system has some challenges that you have to face, bureaucratic challenges. I filed for asylum, and I'm sitting there waiting for my interview date notice to come in, calling every day. I'm not receiving anything. Apparently someone didn't send it, or it got lost, or did my microphone just, yeah, we're good. So it either, I don't know what happened, but it never got to me. So while I'm every day on the phone with the immigration officer who has no idea, it's like, oh yeah, wait, I'm getting a notice saying that I'm sent to court because I never appeared to my interview. And that was a shocker, because that's like, I'm fresh off the boat dealing with my PTSD and with my issues, and then this is, so it added the level of stress intensified. Of course, I showed up, and presented my case, and judge was like, where's your defendant? And I'm like, I am the defendant. And she was like, this case is not a case, this is a mistake. So she says, you have to, and the person who opposed me, sort of a persecutor, he gave me the information of all the nonprofits that I should reach out to so I could legally have it, figured out. And after calling several numbers and trying to get some legal, because I did need legal help at some point, because it was a mistake that I could not fix myself. And I think it was the second number that I dialed was Immigration Equality, and Mr. Aaron Morris spoke to me, who is one of the greatest people I know in this city. Yeah, he's awesome. And he explained to me, he let me tell my story. I explained to him the situation that I was in. We set up a meeting, and I came in. I presented my situation, and they said they would help me, and they did. They found me an amazing law firm, and of course they put the case together again. They made a case and sent my immigration case back to back to the immigration office. So, and they just started the process from scratch. So, and it took about a year and a half or two, the whole process, the bureaucracy, but they pretty much saved my, like they did a lot. They did a lot. It's even, and can you imagine with my background, with my language skills, with my sort of knowledge and understanding of the system, face this and hit the wall, and I can think of someone who is running from Chechnya or Syria, limited language skills, no understanding of American culture, trying to go through the same. Of course, he or she is doomed. And a lot of people in my community, even here, do not understand what going back means. Even now, like the thought of course, I have not been to Georgia, I'm not going to, but the thought of someone telling me that I have to go back, I'd probably rather finish myself here before. But again, for someone who does not have the luxuries that I had of knowing how everything works, so that's why it's important to for people to know and be aware more of what immigration equality does and how important the work of those pro bono lawyers who step in from from various law offices. They're not just giving legal help. They're literally saving lives of people. So, and I was a witness of it at my case, and moving forward, I've worked with immigration equality. I will volunteer and do a lot. You guys are great.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
So what was it like when you finally, after all of this, got your asylum?
Wow. It's like the weight of my shoulders. It was a step to stability and the sense of you know what, you don't, you can sleep at night now, without it was it's still a challenge. I think it's gonna go through your life. It's not gonna be over ever, but the fact that you're safe now, it's like someone just kind of it's very important. It's very important. Therefore, whatever was happening recently, pre-elections or post, I was just sitting there and I was getting not irritated, but very, very disturbed in that sense, so that I could see and experience what this means to a lot of people who are now in the proceedings, who are going through, who are now waiting for their asylum interview, who are now waiting, because if they're back on the plane and if they go back, that's it, they're done. And a lot of people do not understand that, so that's why immigration equality and other nonprofits who are helping immigration equality, who's standing, or everyone else, it's especially now the struggle is very, very real. So
What's your life like now?
it's brilliant. No, it's great. I'm an artist. I do finally found what I do and what I love. I'm surrounded by some of the most amazing people that I could, and my circle is growing. Of course, nobody's perfect, and no life is perfect. You make it closest to. But my voice is growing, and I can speak. My self identity has been established, and I like who I am for who I am. I try to be on the platform where I'm the strongest, and I think I'm really close. And I live in the greatest city in the world, which is not because it's it's not the Statue of Liberty or the yellow caps, because of the people. And I'm in the right family. I'm within the right zip code, so I'm chill.
Can you talk a little bit more about your art and your artistic practice?
Oh God, you have the whole night. No, actually, again, the city, New York. New York I always painted, and I always did a lot of different mediums of, oil or the cartoons or some sculpture, and my the drawing that I did while living in Oklahoma of our mascot cougars. It was cougars. Why cougars? But anyway, it's still in our high school in the lobby there when I visited. So I was always an artsy kid and always did things like that. But not until I moved to the city, and I think my PTSD sort of contributed to that too, because I was very locked in. I mean, not in a creepy way, like, oh no, but I created my own little cubicle where I was sitting and sort of analyzing things, and that's when I take trains a lot, so I started drawing like the line drawing. So I would make these little sketchbook drawings, all in black and white line art, and I was like, wow, this is me. And then I took it to the larger scale. I made a larger painting. Then someone offered me to paint a mural, and I painted the entire rooftop. And then Cadillac took me to Art Basel as an artist to paint the car so it grew and grew and grew, and I was on the right path. So I did not really like become an artist, as in like, oh yeah, I actually literally counted 100 people to call me an artist before I called myself an artist. And again, I'm thankful to the city for giving me this, for finding myself as a human being, and for finding myself as an artist, and that means a lot.
So other than your art, what do you do for fun?
For fun, I mean, oh God, I don't do fun. Wow, I'm old. No, I work for the Drama League of New York, so theater has always, again, I mean, little queer kid, but I was not connected. I mean, I live in the capital of the theater. I mean, so I never had a chance, even though most of my friends are in that field. Okay, hello. I was never like really connected, and then I recently was offered a part-time job doing marketing for the Drama League, and I'm like, absolutely. And then going deeper, now I'm a nominator. Don't tell anyone. For the Drama League Award, so I get to go and experience theater, some good, some less good, and so it just keeps me inspired as well as engaged in the field that is mine and that is really interesting. So yeah, it's the the stars are really lining up in that case. I stay inspired, I create, and then what I create goes through the right channels and gives my voice the more power, which I can use then to speak about things that matter. Any other questions, Your Honor?
Yeah. Is there anything you ever miss about Georgia?
Oh, I guess. I have a question. What's the main purpose of this? What is the message that we're trying to pass on? Like, what's the main?
The goal is for people to learn about your life.
My life as an immigrant, or as a queer immigrant, or what's the? I'm not like being like, why are we doing this? I'm just to get the point of.
Yeah, we want people to know your story.
The key to my story, and the main sort of, just to summarize my story, is that for no matter who sees this footage, if it's a single mom out in Arkansas who thinks that her kid might be growing up queer, or if it's some straight middle-aged dude out in Arizona who thinks that faggots deserve to be put on the ship, and some no matter who, I think one thing that my story, when I listen to it and when I tell it to myself, always tells me one thing, that we all love and we all hate. But the greatness of this country is that you're free to love and you're free to hate, but you do not act on your hate. You control your hate. And especially in the communities, and the churches and the community centers have a very, very important role in this case, to create awareness and explain to people that no matter who that person is, different from you because of the religion or sexuality or race, don't be afraid of someone who is different from you. This is a human instinct of being afraid of someone who does not look or act like you. I come from the place where everyone is white, everyone is similar. They're all like single-handedly like the same. As soon as something or someone different drops in, they're afraid and they hate it. And that it was me. That it can be anyone. So if you see something that is, unless it harms you, unless it comes and does something wrong to you and physically harms you, if someone does no harm, please accept it and love it, because you never know what this can bring to you. We good?
Is there anything else that you want people to know about you?
About me, I don't know. Go to davidpaulk.com and look at my work and send me an email. And no, I'm not that interesting yet. But a few years later, I think there'll be more to talk about. Unless he puts that code in and then presses that button, then we're all
Is there anything else you want to add to this record of your life?
No, I guess I've covered it, most of it, you know. One thing that I actually want, I don't know if you want to sort of use it somewhere, but when I hear America is the country of opportunities, I do not like that. I do not like that because it sounds very, very opportunistic and sends the wrong message. And the way I formulate it is the America is the country of possibilities, and anything is possible. And there's a big difference between these two, because, you know, you come to my country, that's the mentality. I mean, no, it's a possibility. Come and make it here. And by making it here, it doesn't mean that you have to, you know, become great. Be good. Be good at what you are. So that, again, country of opportunities is, I cross it off. It's the country of possibilities. And I'm thankful that I have a possibility to be who I am and to do what I do without meaning no harm.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's it?
Thank you.
Thank you.